All right. So, those of you who don't know me, my name is Adora, and I'm the author of Majestic Money, the 30-day Femme Manifesting Game. And I am all about helping women own their divinity and their feminine energy so that they can manifest money, love, miracles, the life that they're called to live. And we I'm bringing to you, those of you who do know me because we're on my page, I'm bringing Justin Grant here. He's the author of a book, and I'll have you share that book. But what got me right away is that it was all about business and spirituality, and something that I really believe and say a lot is that, we're spirits in a body. So whether you consider yourself to be spiritual or not, because you're a spirit that squeezed yourself into a body and you're playing a physical game, everything you do is spiritual because you're spiritual. So when I read your book, in fact, my bio even had like, I'm all about business and spirituality together. When we read each other's books, and I saw yours, I was just like, oh my gosh, this guy is yes, home tribe, and you've had some really great success. So, do you want to say a little bit more about the actual title of the book, and then I'll start diving in and asking questions.
Yes, thank you, Adora. So yeah, my name's Justin S. Grant, and I've written a book called Business and Spirituality: Secrets of Personal, Professional, and Planetary Evolution.
We're gonna have to
It's
put a picture in the comments. Yeah, I'll get
it's ethereal book. Um, so yeah, it's very similar to what your book is about and what you believe. And there's dual meaning to the title, business and spirituality. So on the one hand, on a personal level, business is just whatever we are busy with all day long, whether we're a student or a homemaker or an engineer or entrepreneur. That's our business. It doesn't mean we have to be a business person specifically. But then the other meaning is businesses and corporations are, in my opinion, the most powerful entities on the planet right now. And they really have the power to make or break things for our entire species. And so for that reason, they need a lot of our attention. And an improvement of the culture that they operate under so that we can thrive rather than annihilate ourselves. So it as everyone I think would agree, it's really, the situation is that dramatic actually. And to your point, as to why the book is called Business and Spirituality and what it's about, you said exactly what I believe, which is science teaches us that our material universe is actually all made of energy. And that's a modern take on reality. But all religions have been saying for as long as we humans have existed that the material world is a shadow of the spiritual world. So we live in this paradox of being spiritual beings living in a material world. And they're both important. The material, physical, bodily side is important right now, and the spiritual soul side is important eternally. So this book is about blending the two to bolster and strengthen the both.
Yeah, I love that so much, and I think this interview is really timely because a lot of my audience and friends and community, they are. I mean, look, I loved what you said about it's also about the business, that what are you busying
Yeah,
yourself with? But
yeah.
lots of my community are entrepreneurial people
Hmm.
or real estate
Hmm.
agents or people
Hmm.
that have this vision of freedom for their life and a
Hmm.
vision of contribution to their community. And
Hmm.
especially with all of this that's happening now, more and more people are making the leaps to finally, get into that business, start the t-shirt
Hmm.
business, sell their
Right,
cakes,
right,
or
right,
play their music because we've
right.
really come to value one, life is meaningful and what is the most meaningful thing, and then two, what, I want to own my own freedom. I don't want someone to lay me off. I need a side hustle, and now's the time.
Hmm.
So I
Right.
think people starting their businesses, reading your book would be a really good idea. And we're going
Mm.
to dive more into it so we can get some value, some more value now. Having you here is valuable. Um, because the way that you began and the culture you're creating, even if it's in your home office and your child's on the other side of the door, that's still the beginning of the vibration of how the business goes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, the audience for this book is very wide. It can be an employee, a student, a beginning entrepreneur, an experienced entrepreneur, or somebody working or leading a major corporation. All the same, the vibration starts at the top and reverberates through the entire organization, regardless of the size. Um, and this book really tries to explore the mystical and make it practical because, again, we're all spiritual beings living in a material world and everything is important. Um, and there's no tiptoeing around the fact that both living and surviving in the material world is challenging and also evolving our consciousness, our soul, is supremely challenging. So, if we can integrate these two things rather than separate and relegate them how they have been in our secular society for so long, um, much good can come of that. So, and it's really unique, I think, to our society that things are so secularized because in through most of human history and in most places on the planet right now, there's not these major separations between a secular workplace and a religious temple or something. Um, and since we're spiritual beings, if we go to work 5 days a week, 40 hours, 50 hours, and really ignore our spiritual side, well, people get depressed, people get bored, people get sick, and people lack vision because vision comes from the higher world. And if there's no vision, then there's little chance of a business surviving in perpetuity and really thriving and making a significant contribution to society, regardless of how the scope of that business and that activity is. So that's what the
Yeah,
book's about.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about some of these practical
Hmm.
tips in there. So, how would someone who, because right now there are a lot of people that just feel lucky to have jobs or to have clients, and then
Right.
there are other people that their businesses are, doing very well right here because they do, they stepped in the time, they've been, preparation meets luck, meets inspiration. But if someone watching
Hmm.
is in a position where they're not feeling inspired. They're in survival mode, which in general, right now,
Hmm.
um, this year has put a lot of people in that position. How can how can they move from just feeling like they're not living their vision, they're not where they want to be, but they need to bring income in. So whatever they're busying themselves with
Right.
feels like what they've got to do. How do you bring that spirituality and lightness and vision?
Right. That's a great question. Well, there are analogs between physical exercise and spiritual exercise, which is often called spiritual practice. So, just like when we're lifting weights, we can start with light weights and then we can progress to heavier weights. Similarly, with the spiritual practices. So, beginning with lightweight activities that are very easy to get into, and if you're at home, you can do whatever you like. But if you're in an office place, generally people want to do something that is not overtly religious and might seem strange to other people. So, meditation, which is huge in Fortune 500 companies, especially in some of these California, Silicon Valley companies, is probably the easiest thing that we can do to merge our busyness and our spirituality. So people often, wonder how to meditate, and there's all sorts of methods. But the easiest, I believe, that's discussed in my book is just focusing, getting calm, and then focusing on the breath coming in and out of our nostrils. And if we do that for just 60 seconds, maybe 3 minutes, um, it doesn't look strange if people are walking around uh, in your office. And it's deceptively simple, meaning that if you actually do it and actually focus on it, it's really a wonderful way to calm, to ground, and to start to raise your awareness beyond our ordinary personal awareness in the material world, which again is important, but absolutely is challenging and distracting from our highest purpose in life and our peace. One of my favorite quotes from the Bible is, "The fruit of the Spirit is peace and joy." So, when we come into spiritual alignment, we have peace, we have joy, and we could add to that list inspiration, which is universally desirable, whether it's just for personal fulfillment or for something more entrepreneurial and productive in our business or busyness life. Um, so I think on the easy side, we can just focus on our breathing and just really the sensations of the breath going in and out of our nose for
I'm doing
a
it
minute.
now. I'm doing it. As
Okay.
soon as you said it, I was doing it, which is
Yeah.
so cool because, like you said, it's not
Yeah.
obvious, but
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
simple
Hmm.
and a simple way to just calm
Right.
down. I mean, I was listening to
Indeed.
what you were saying too, but
Indeed. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
very aware of the breath in my
Right.
nose moving. Yeah.
And it makes you feel better every time without fail. So, and it's free, and it's again not strange to anyone walking around. So again, keeping with the analogy of exercise, that would be sort of the lightweight exercise. And then another practice more in the middle might be actual um, physical exercise or yoga, which is again very common in Fortune 500 companies. So it's becoming mainstream and something that actually exists in the workplace nowadays. So yeah, just yoga postures, which are widely available on the web or with a teacher, um, can be done again just for 5 minutes or something. They can be done in work clothes. They don't make you sweaty, and there may be a little heavier spiritual weight with a bit more benefit to it. So there again, it's recommended that people can actually try to incorporate some simple yoga into their workday. Maybe morning, noon, evening. Um, and that will bring inspiration because in Sanskrit, the sacred language of the East, just in the way that Latin is the sacred language of the West, the word yoga in Sanskrit means union, and union means union with the universe, with divinity. So once again, in our personal awareness and in our busy, crazy lives, whether there's work, bosses, employees, children, friends, whatever, driving us crazy. It happens to everyone. It's important that we continually recenter ourselves and find this peaceful, inspired union with our higher self and even the universe itself. So that would be, I'd say a mid-range spiritual practice that's very useful and is becoming more and more prevalent in our culture. So it'll become less and less foreign to people, which is beautiful.
Well, I think it's really important because at some point I thought, well, when I'm in a bottom line, move the needle in my business, results oriented, I call that my masculine side, and
Mm-hmm.
I think we need both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when I'm analyzing business and what the most important actions and most efficient actions are to
Right.
take in my company, a lot of times you're not thinking, let me go hug a tree or breathe deep
Right.
or do a yoga class. You're
Right.
in a different space that's more, let me lift these heavy weights and drive and push, and we're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's excitement. So, some people in that space may go, but wait, now you want me to stop and do yoga? Like, I don't have. In fact, I've even noticed there are times when I'm in that space and I'm someone who loves ecstatic dance. I love the
Hmm.
slow
Hmm.
meditative movement. But when I've been, like, for instance, when I was writing my book, and really pushing the final edits and all the tech stuff, that we've got to learn.
Right.
Ecstatic dance wasn't appealing to me. It felt
Mm-hmm.
too slow
Mm-hmm.
compared to the energy that I had and needed for
Mm-hmm.
what I was producing at the
Mm-hmm.
time. So
Right.
I love, and I want to ask another question about this. I love the simplicity of breathing because in again at that simple level, when you're in the go go go, everybody can take 60 seconds and do that. And I think if you can remember that, hey, I know you feel like you just need to go go go, run right now, but taking
Mm-hmm.
the 60-second breath is going to allow you to drink in and open inspiration and union and all of
Mm-hmm.
that in your being, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
allow you to go harder, longer, whatever
Right.
that
Yeah.
goal is in the
Absolutely.
moment. That sounded funny, but uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so is
So
there anything you want to say about that when you hear that? Because I'm
sure.
sure you dealt with both sides. Like, yeah, there's the time when we're sitting around and going, oh, I just want to, and we're in our hearts as entrepreneurs, I
Hmm.
want this meaning and this impact. And then there are other
Right.
times that it's not the space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's space for a lot of things every day. Not everything, but a lot of things. And in the book, I discuss other sorts of practices, such as, traditional exercise that may be more appropriate um, if you're really in that roaring to go mode and just don't want to stop and breathe. Um, but this book, Business and Spirituality, is also another expression of the material and the spiritual, yin and yang. And so the point is balance, because when things get out of balance, things break down. And when people are driving hard, they tend to make a lot of mistakes. So those mistakes just have to be undone, um, and or they may break down, physically or psychologically, and then they need to take a big time out. So if things get out of balance, things don't work well, and then in the long run, we're less productive. So certainly, there's a time to
Like
just,
driving your car without gas, right? Or with the engine
yeah,
light on or something.
right, right, yeah. So there's a time to roll up our sleeves, and maybe that's much of our day. Um, but if things get too out of balance, things break down. So that's a great question.
Well, that's a great answer for what's going on because again, in this time that we're in, I think there have been a lot of people slowing down and breathing and
Mm.
smelling the
Hmm.
flowers out of pure survival, right? Like, I've
Yeah,
got to do
right,
this.
right.
And so rather than getting to that point, there's a time to make the
Hmm.
time and work it in. And if you were talking to someone that had a bigger company and they're
Hmm.
going, how is bringing yoga or meditation or breathing or this book
Hmm.
to my company, how is that going to create something better? And
Hmm.
why is it important,
Right,
the message that you're standing for? So
right. Well, another favorite quote of mine from the Bible is, "For lack of vision, the people perish." So if we're not inspired, in a sense, we're dead. And even the word inspiration is synonymous with inhalation, with breathing. Um, so just as for lack of vision, people perish, well, for lack of vision, businesses will perish too. If they just aren't, relevant, to use the buzzword of the day, to society, they're going to eventually die. So it's important that we continue to renew our inspiration and our entrepreneurial inspiration so that we can continue to contribute in society and not just survive, but really thrive. So, yeah, there's deep discussion as to that how and why that plays out in a workplace, or whatever people are busy with, even if they're homemakers or students, or volunteers at a nonprofit. All the same, we're all pretty much busy in this culture, less so in these strange pandemic times. But yeah, all the same, we need to be inspired, in order to get out of bed in the day, get out of bed every day, and to contribute in a meaningful way to our workplace and society at large.
And what's something, and I think this is so key. You said pandemic, so I'm going to say 2020. I was trying to keep this like if
Mhm.
someone watched it, but it's relevant. And it's been a
Mhm.
great growth experience for many of us. We're still growing as a community, as a
Mhm.
global community through
Right.
this and finding our way. So, inspiration is something that, I was talking to a group of healers, and one of the ladies said, it's something that we're just having to use all of our tools to fight for daily right now on some
Mhm.
days because there's just a lot of big things going on, one after the other, big community
Right.
causes and growth,
Right.
and that can be challenging. So I love the simplicity of breathing and yoga. What if you
Mhm.
have someone that's been doing that for years and they're still feeling like, because once your body kind of gets, they're still feeling kind of frantic or like they can't find their inspiration, or there's some big moments happening, and how
Mhm.
do they
Mhm.
handle it? Like, what
Right.
do you
Right. Well,
recommend as another practice? Mhm.
yeah, that's a great question, and that ties into the overall theme of, how we can blend our busyness with our spirituality. And my analogy of the weights, beginning with light weights, breathing, moving on to medium weights, and there are many exercises, but yoga is one of them. I would say the heaviest spiritual weight, um, which is not fun and is challenging, but is produces the most marvelous results and is all but forgotten in our busy, busy, busy culture, is fasting. So if we are uninspired, if we are broken down, if we are ill, if we are depressed, the ultimate spiritual tool is fasting. So we can fast, just for 24 hours. We can fast for 3 days. And then as we build up to it, because you can't just start with the heaviest weights, we can fast for many days. Um, and fasting, I believe, it's the ultimate spiritual quest. And on the material side, everybody loves that they lose weight in the process, but um, beyond that, it clarifies and vivifies our physical nature, our emotional nature, our mental nature, and really brings us into this just incredibly powerful alignment with our spiritual nature. And if people are dedicated to fasting for, a 3-day fast, it's just impossible that they come out the other end of that heavy workout, so to speak, without just feeling rejuvenated and re-inspired and reinvigorated with life. So um, once again, in our busy culture, and as you mentioned, when you're in drive, drive, drive mode, nobody wants to take 3 days out of their life to lay around in bed feeling woozy and and lazy. But if we do, we not only rejuvenate ourselves, but we literally extend our lifespan. This is proven with science, and I have endnotes in the book that confirm that. So again, overall, if we live this more balanced approach to our business life and our spiritual life, um, we will be more productive at the end of our days, than if we're just drive, 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 and we really make a lot of errors and in life and in business, and then you know truncate our lifespan by even decades, because we're just living so out of balance with what was intended for us by Mother Nature, and also what is possible for us in this extremely privileged time that we live in many ways, where we have supermarkets and refrigerators and technologies that people of even 100 or 200 years ago just could hardly have dreamed of. So yeah, again, the heaviest weight in our spiritual gym is fasting. So when people really need something significant, for whatever reason, personal, professional, familial, relational, um, fasting is my recommendation, and it's discussed thoroughly in the book because it's so important and all but forgotten in our culture in many ways.
Yeah, well, there's a lot out there and a lot of mixed feelings about it. So I'm glad that you've got it in your book and
Mhm.
people can do the research and
Right.
reach out to you about how you suggest it. I worked so hard to build muscle. Fasting
Mhm.
would take some of that away. So I'm going to hold off for a little bit on that. But I do know that the even in the Bible and lots of different spiritual pathways
Mhm.
talk about fasting. So I think in a safe, effective, concentrated way, that'd be really, really, I could see where that would be beneficial. And thank you for sharing that. So balance is key. That's a
Mhm.
core takeaway.
Mhm.
And maintaining our balance by blending our spirituality with our busyness. And that can
Mhm.
be as simple as breathing. And I love the idea of taking a moment to breathe and going, I'm opening inspiration right now. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Right.
And being able to work it, learning to work it into life. And,
Mhm.
while I love the drive so much, my whole message is about the feminine and intuitive and
Mhm.
connecting
Mhm.
and slowing down. And
Right.
so I definitely agree with the
Mhm.
need for
Mhm.
balance.
Mhm.
And we've been immersed in a society that celebrates the go, achieve, achieve. So I think it's one of those things that it's really nice to find the reminders, to read
Right.
new perspectives. And
Right.
so
Right.
I
Right.
just want to thank you so much for being here with me today. It's
Oh,
our first conversation. We've had
right.
chat, so we did that live with everybody, which is amazing. And I would like for you to do a couple things. One, tell them how to reach out to you, where to find the book, and as well as any closing thoughts.
Yeah,
I'm going to check
absolutely.
Facebook just to see if anyone had any questions.
Okay.
I didn't say ask your questions, so there may not be
Okay.
any. Um,
Sure.
if
Sure.
you do have questions, post them because we can answer them in the comments later.
Right. Well, yeah, I absolutely. My name is Justin S. Grant, and my website's justinsgrant.com. And on there, there's information about the book and actually supporting meditation and invocation music that I've made. And then on all the social media platforms, I'm also at Justin S. Grant. So yeah, please check it out. And since your book is about the feminine side of success, I'd also like to mention that in this book, actually, there's there's 7 chapters and many subsections, so that every bit can be read in a digestible, 8 or 10 pages. And the longest subsection is actually called "The Ascent of Women and Societal Holism." So there's no avoiding the fact that women are entering the workplace and participating in public life in unprecedented ways. Just the world has never seen anything like that before. And of course, the new is always difficult and challenging, but also the opportunities are unlike anything we've ever seen in human society before. So yeah, again, there's a lot of exploration in the book of what women may have to offer our society. And I don't pretend to know all about it, but I studied these things in depth and studied scientists and psychologists and philosophers, male and female, to try to really contemplate you know, what women can do to make our society more holistic. And, it just ties into the theme of balance and to what you were saying, balance. Um, so, yeah, for your readers, it may be interesting that there's a deep exploration of what women may have to offer, um, and how we can strive towards wholeness, which in spiritual language is called androgyny, which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with our outer appearance. It's more integrating our masculine and feminine sides so that we can achieve wholeness, which is synonymous with holiness. And of course, holiness is supremely effective um, if we learn how to make it practical. And that's what the book explores all throughout.
So awesome. Thank you. It was so great getting to jam with you on these topics.
Yeah,
And thank you
indeed,
for
indeed.
putting your work out there in the world and being a stand for a cultural change in
Hmm.
business and the
Right,
culture of business
right.
changing in a way that is more suitable and matches who we are and where we need to go as a society.
Indeed, indeed. There's a lot of wonderful things about our society, but clearly there's room for improvement always. So that's what the book really delves into. And I put a lot of research and a lot of thought into it. And I think if people approach it with an open mind, they'll find things that inspire them and things that are immediately practical to them, ranging from simple tasks to more complicated and long range life goals. So, yeah, thank you, Adora. Your book was wonderful too. So I look forward to talking about that more in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So
Yeah,
guys, if it's calling to you, I'll get the link and post it in the comments when we're done so that you can check out his book. Thank you. Thank
yeah.
you
Thanks, Adora.
everyone.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.